Dr. Ronald Schweitzer, Low-carb versus Control Group Report, Part 2, from Low-carb Down Under, Summer 2021.
So this is an example of some of the successes that we get. This is a gentleman who saw me. You can see that his HbA1c's, he sort of became pre-diabetic in 2001. His HbA1c went up to 12.7, and that's when I saw him. And we made an intervention at July 2019, started him on Metformin, which I think is a really good drug for diabetes, and the low carb. And then 3 months later, his HbA1c is 6.1. That was October 2019, and that's been maintained for 15 months. So we'd say he's in remission. 5.6, 5.8, 6.0 and 5.7. He was pretty happy with that. It's actually been maintained 15 months now. Comparing my low-carb eating to people in the control group. So the inclusion criteria were people who I saw with NIDM between May and December, and they'd had to have at least 2 HbA1cs performed approximately 12 months apart. 65 patients met the criteria. 32 were in the intervention group, meaning low-carb eating, and 33 were in the control group. So that was nice and even, which was good. These are the results, and you can sort of see the groups are fairly similar. The control group was slightly older. The time they were followed was similar. Their HbA1cs were much the same. At 12 months, the control group had gone up 0.4, which is what it says on the diabetes website. Diabetes is a chronic condition that gets worse, and this is what we see here, a gradual increase in the HbA1c and needing 1.8 medications. I'm pleased to say the intervention group, the low-carb group, improved. You can see that they went down by 0.8. And they're on less medications because we had to stop certain medications, the SGLT2 inhibitors and the sulfonylureas usually. So they're on less medication. And I think this 1.2 difference is a clinically important difference. Also looked at the number of people in this group who had a non-diabetic HbA1c, meaning a HbA1c less than 6.5. And at the start, again, very similar numbers. 12 months later, it had gone from 7 to 5 in the control group, which I guess is in keeping with what Diabetes Australia tells us, whereas the intervention group had gone from 7 to 11, so that had gone up 34%, which is still better than the control group. And again, I would say that this increase in non-diabetic HbA1cs is a clinically important difference. Now, I shared these results with a colleague of mine, an endocrinologist, and most endocrinologists aren't enthusiastic about low carb, we can say, and that was certainly the response I got. Oh yeah, you can do things that might work for 6 months or 12 months, but most people, it doesn't work down the track. So I said, let's see what happens to my patients who are doing this. So again, there are a lot smaller numbers, 25 in the control group, 15 in the intervention group, similar ages, followed for similar times, and certainly their starting HbA1cs were similar. At 2 years, the control group had only gone up 0.3, which I think is pretty good, and their number of anti-diabetic medications 1.9. The intervention group had gone down to 0.8, which we talked about before, but at 2 years it had gone down a smidgen more, 0.9, and they were on less medications. So again, I think this is a clinically important difference, and it's not only maintained but improved over 2 years. I also looked at the patients with non-diabetic HbA1cs, 5 in each group. So again, the control group has a slightly lower percentage, so they're not quite as healthy at the beginning. 2 years later, they actually got an extra 1, which was great. So it went from 20 to 24%, but the intervention group went up from 33 to 57%. Small numbers, I know, but still, they're sort of going in the right direction. And again, on less medications. So again, I think this is a clinically important difference. And achieved with less anti-diabetic medication.
An example of one patient, 59 years old, type 2 diabetes, poorly controlled. In 2001, he became pre-diabetic. In July 2019, he saw Dr. Schweitzer. His HbA1c was 12.3. He began metformin and a low-carb diet. In October of that same year, his HbA1c had dropped to 6.1. And by December 2020, his HbA1c had dropped to between 5.6 and 5.7. Dr. Ron Schweitzer now reports on his audit. He's comparing two groups, a low-carb group and a control group. All participants had to have at least 2 HbA1c tests and at least 12 months apart. 32 patients were in the low-carb group, 33 in the control group. Some of the critical results. For the low-carb group, the change from 7.5 to 6.7 in the HbA1c is clinically important. Another key finding is that the low-carb patients increased into non-diabetic HbA1c from 22% to 34%. Dr. Schweitzer says, most endocrinologists are not enthusiastic about low-carb eating. They say things like, quote, it may work for 6 or 12 months, but not longer. So he decided to expand the length of time for his audit. His findings included there was a 1.2% difference in HbA1c at 2 years, which is a clinically important difference. Also, the low-carb group was now using 26% less anti-diabetic medications. Another finding in the 2-year follow-up, an increase in patients with a non-diabetic HbA1c at 2 years is a clinically important difference. And this was achieved with less anti-diabetic medications. Annotated and summarized. Easy to share with loved ones. The description below the title for this video has these summary points.